Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hello, this is the hardcore legend Mick Foley, and if you are interested in listening to idiots, you came to the right place. Have a nice day.
Woo! That's an attention getter.
He's a very strange young man.
He's an idiot.
What we're dealing with here is a complete lack of respect for the law.
Oh my God, he's an idiot.
You know, of course, that you're out of your jurisdiction.
Personally, I think you're an idiot.
But that's the evidence in the car.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Always like to keep my audience riveted.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, friends and fiends, and welcome to Free Range Idiocy, the podcast about everything, but mostly just the stuff we like. Last week, we delved into the first half of our Wrestling Finishers March Madness bracket and got the winners from Regions 1 and 2. Now we wade into the all too brutal and, well, not so brutal moves from Regions 3 and 4. Who will get their hand raised and who's going to be doing the JOB? We'll find out in this episode 201 Wrestling Finishers Finale. I am your Uncle Todd, and with me, as always, the man who has been advised by his doctors that he should no longer drop elbows from the top rope due to the danger of a globule of bacon shaking loose from an artery. He has been my partner in idiocy for over 2 decades, and always has a foreign object hidden in his arm wrap. I give you the man they call Tim.
Booyaka, booyaka, 619, 619, booyaka, booyaka. That's my pueblo. That's my pueblo. Booyaka, booyaka, 619. I'm trying not to laugh, but you take the glasses off. I had to. Booyaka, booyaka. That's my pueblo. Booyaka, booyaka, 619. Hey, booyaka, booyaka. Rey Mysterio. Booyaka, booyaka, 619. Booyaka, booyaka. That's my pueblo. Booyaka, booyaka, 619. What you gonna do when we come for you? Rey Mysterio, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings and salutations. How are you, sir?
I wasn't prepared for Christopher Walken saying booyaka that many times.
Booyaka.
I feel like we need to legitimately have him sing that version. We need Christopher Walken to sing that live at WrestleMania. That's what we need.
I just want to say, I tried as best I could.
While Rey Mysterio wanders around confused why this old white guy is singing his theme song. I think that would be the greatest thing ever.
Rey Mysterio and the crowd would be confused. What is this? I had prepared myself mentally for you to laugh or react or whatever. But then when you took the glasses off, I'm like, oh, sweet Moses, the glasses are coming off. The eyes are being wiped. This is a different level that we're going to here. Holy moly, sir.
I was not. I thought I was braced, and I was not. I was
clenched.
Wrong.
Clenched?
Well, you can't clench too much, because if you clench too much, you wind up with a hemorrhoid.
What's a hemorrhoid? Oh, good Lord. All right.
Well, I'm doing well. How about you, sir?
Hey, I feel like I've hit another like achievement in a video game here. I've got Uncle Todd to. Up. I have. I mean, I've unlocked some new element to the friendship here. I don't think I've ever made you laugh that hard. So that was phenomenal. Who knew? It just took a little Christopher Walken. I mean, I don't think I'm doing a great Christopher Walken, but I'm trying to do my best impression of it, and hopefully it entertains. That's the point, is to entertain.
It does do that.
Oh, my goodness. We're episode 201 here. By the way, I started to listen to episode 1 last week to just remind myself
why
where we started from. Go back to the roots. This is like Apollo Creed taking Rocky back to his gym. Go back to where we started. And my God, Do we have more personality now than we did then? By God.
It was pretty bad.
Holy crap. And we were drinking alcohol during that episode, too, for crying out loud.
That's the remarkable thing. We were trying to hold it so far in check.
Yeah, no kidding.
It did not work for us. Anyways.
But how are you, sir? You asked me.
I'm doing well. You already asked me that, but I'm still doing well.
Good.
As of right now. How about you, sir? How are you doing?
Hey, I got my Elijah Craig glass. I got my my Wild Turkey 101 going on, and all is good with the world, ladies and gentlemen.
Gobble, gobble. Oh,
gobble,
little Wild Turkey 101. Treat
gobble, gobble.
Jeez.
Who knew your funny bone weakness was Christopher Walken of all people?
I did not know.
Oh,
I had no clue.
I feel this is more entertaining and more of an adventure as Walken than it was as Shatner. So.
I mean, we keep going like this, and it's going to turn into a Christopher Walken fetish. It's not going to be good. I'll need a recovery group. I'll need a recovery group.
You need a recovery group.
Oh my gosh.
Booyaka.
I so need that in my life now. I'm gonna go on Chat GPT after this. I'm gonna see if I can wrench it around to give me that.
Good Lord.
Oh gosh.
All right, so we are going to talk as we started
finishers here
last week. This is the finisher of all finishers.
The finisher of all finishers finale. Say that 3 times fast.
Indeed. So last week we adjudicated rounds 1 or brackets 1 and 2 to get to half of our final 4. And we are going to now, which by the way, let's do a quick recap. So for me, coming out of my first bracket was Jake the Snake Roberts, DDT, and coming out of bracket 2 was CM Punk's Go to Sleep, better known as the GTS. Those are my 2 finishers that came out of our round last week. What were your 2, sir?
I've got the Stone Cold Stunner. And the Razor's Edge from AO, the bad guy, Razor Ramon.
Chico.
Hey, Chico.
Which, by the way, this past week's Rivals on A&E, WWE Rivals, was Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in the very first ladder match at WrestleMania.
Yeah. Good choice.
Probably going to watch that once we get done recording.
Should you get some sleep?
I do need that too, but thankfully I'm working from home tomorrow, so I have a little bit of latitude. I don't have to get up for the train, so I get a little extra hour and a half of sleep.
The man they call Tim working in his drawers.
Business on top, party down below.
Yeah. Make sure you shut off that camera.
Oh my God.
Go to stand up. Everyone's like,
my eyes. All right.
I need that severance thing so that I can that wipe my
forget
memory.
about what I've seen. Oh my God. All right. Well, so I guess we're going to start this as our bracket 3 here.
Yes.
I'll run through the matchups, and then how about I do this? I'll run through the matchups, and then maybe last week I started. I think this week, why don't you start?
Okay.
And then I will follow you after that with my pick. So in bracket 3, we have, ironically,
Booyaka.
It's Booyaka. 619 Rey Mysterio versus the Shake, Rattle, and Roll, which
I'm
is
not
this
drunk enough for this.
The swinging neck breaker by the Honky Tonk Man. I love how you had to put in parentheses the swinging net breaker.
Well, I just thought it was,
it's one of the few finishers where we have a parentheses to explain what the name actually means. But
well,
we had a judgment decision here. We assigned the 5-star Frog Splash to Eddie Guerrero instead of RVD, who also utilized said Frog Splash as his finisher.
RVD has like 8 finishers, so
he does. It's
fine. He's not going to be all right.
But Eddie Guerrero's 5-star Frog Splash will go up against. This is a rough one. Demolition Decapitation.
Yeah,
that was a nasty one. Christian's Unprettier, one of the stranger names for a equally strange finisher, against Finn Balor's Coup de Grace. We have Billy Kidman's Shooting Star Press up against, I love this one, man, if this was ever a squash, the Steiner Brothers Steiner DDT. Oh, sweet Lord. Oh, my God. I don't know a whole lot of people that would pick Kidman over the brothers, but anyways. John Cena's Attitude Adjustment against Rob Van Dam's Van Terminator, which that was an interesting choice to go with that one. So
it was so what was the Van Daminator was the throwing the chair at the guy and then kicking the chair.
Doing the spinning kick. The Van Terminator, if I remember correctly, is his opponent is in the opposing corner on the ground with a some sort of chair or garbage can mounted against them, and RVD would basically do a lunging drop kick from the other side of the ring all the way to that point.
Like a springboard drop kick off the top rope. I thought it was off the top turnbuckle, but that was Shane. Shane would do it off the turnbuckle.
Okay.
RVD did it off of the top rope, like springboard it off. So like
a little more spring. Yeah.
Absolutely insane.
It was insane.
Oh.
We have Yokozuna, his Banzai drop against the Midnight Express's rocket launcher. We have Mr. Perfect. Oh, this is the match of all matches, ladies and gentlemen, right here. And this
should not have been allowed. A righteous God would not allow this in the first round.
Completely randomized. Mr. Perfect's Perfectplex versus Bret the Hitman Hart's Sharpshooter. Oh, sweet Lord, put me out of my misery.
So wrong. So wrong.
Oh, my God. And then the last matchup of Bracket 3 is Rhea Ripley's Riptide versus, the Macho Man Randy Savage's top rope flying elbow. So that is Bracket 3. Do you want me to continue into Bracket 4, or do we want to
let's do 3 first.
Adjudicate 3. All right, here we go. So what are your picks on this one?
Between the 619 and the Shake, Rattle, and Roll, I got the 619. The Shake, Rattle, and Roll was good for its time. It doesn't hold up over the test of time. 619 has even though it is somewhat ridiculous and it is a convoluted setup, which usually gets marks off for me, it's unique. And it is one of those things that really only Ray pulls off really well. Dominic does it, but since Dominic is a good, almost foot taller than Dad, it doesn't look as good. The way that Ray moves and the snap he gets on it is so unique that it makes what could be absolutely ridiculous look really good.
Yeah.
So I got the 619 on that one. Between the Frog Splash and the demo decap, man, this is one of the ones I had highlighted where this was a tough one for me because
it's hard.
Eddie Guerrero's Frog Splash was a thing of beauty. There are some of these finishers I am going purely on aesthetics. And Eddie Guerrero doing the 5-star Frog Splash was just gorgeous.
Yes.
I think the mullet gave him some extra hang time or something. I don't know what it was. However, the demo decapitation was one of those moves that back in the day, it just looked brutal. So I had to go with the demo decap. These are two moves that I was just not a huge fan of. Unprettier versus Coup de Grace. I don't like the whole idea of I just jump off the top rope and stomp on somebody.
It's like reverse Sophie's choice here. There isn't really a good.
No, and the Unprettier is so convoluted to get someone in that position that it's I didn't like either of these, but I went with the Unprettier because it was the lesser of two evils. I'm going to say right now, I am that guy that is going to choose the Shooting Star Press over the Steiner DDT. You can go ahead. I'm glad you saved that from last time. It is one of those things that just for aesthetics. And I get it. I was a big proponent of Impact last time. Kidman flying through the air doing the Shooting Star Press it's iconic. It's an iconic look.
You're wrong.
Okay, fine. Going with the Attitude Adjustment versus the Van Terminator, I got to go with the Van Terminator just for sheer athleticism. Oh my dear God. To jump across the ring and drop kick somebody, that's pretty crazy.
The one thing I will just take issue with is I don't know that RVD used that as a finisher, though. To your point, he was a man of many talents,
yes,
and he may have put some people away with that in a match here or there. But that I will get into my picks on that front. But okay, that's fine.
Bonsai drop to rocket launcher. This was kind of tough just because the rocket launcher is kind of cool, but at the end of the day, like Yokozuna is the one guy that kind of really sold this as like that would really suck. And apparently did it in a way where like you barely even knew he was doing it. It was light as a feather. And to me, that's getting into the behind the scenes thing that kind of also gives some points. Like those guys who can just make everything look like it just is killing somebody, and yet it at the end of the match you're like, wow, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So I got the bonsai drop there. Oh my gosh. This one, the perfect plex versus sharpshooter. Come on. This is just wrong because the perfect plex is one of the most perfect, not no pun intended, finishing moves ever. Like it is an impact maneuver that it contains the pin.
Yes.
Like basically what was it? It's a suplex where he's already hooked the leg.
Right.
So that when he suplexes, Mr. Perfect would then bridge to take himself off the mat and keep his opponent's shoulders down and already has his leg hooked.
Right. He would retain the suplex form so that the other hand was free and he would lock the hands together. So he would essentially have a locking pin combination, which was just brilliant for the time, that he introduced it.
It is like one of the perfect finishers. Unfortunately, it's going up against one of the most legendary submissions ever.
Yeah.
Like a way to, how do you improve on the figure four? You turn it into a figure four that you're also turning into.
I would say, how do you improve a Boston Crab?
Well, yeah. Essentially, it's combining the two.
Right. It's combining the Boston Crab with
But I mean, chicken egg. I mean, which one you're combining the two? I mean, which one are you improving? Both. I got to give it to the sharpshooter, if only because it like most of the things that Brett did, it just always looked great with him and has looked like dog poo with everybody else. Like The Rock doing a sharpshooter, terrible. Anyone else doing a sharpshooter, terrible.
Yeah.
Brett doing it, looks great.
Cinched.
Riptide versus Flying Elbow. This one was tough just because Rhea makes the Riptide look like she's trying to put someone through the fracking ring. There's times when this looks like, oh, okay, that, and then there's other times where it's like, oh, she's trying to bury them. Like she's trying to plant this person 6 feet under. And we all know, like, how deep in the bag I am for Rhea at this point. However,
I love you 3000.
Hey, mommy's always on top. But dude, Macho Man, another one of those things that it is aesthetically, it is iconic.
Yes.
And just the fact that, he would get up on the top turnbuckle and pose, and then the way he would just fly.
Mm-hmm.
And it never seemed like it was the case that I can remember where he was like connecting like with his like his wrist. Like it always seemed like the placement was perfect. He was actually hitting him with the elbow.
Everything okay over there?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff going on outside.
Here's some sirens over there. Is there the end of the world happening, or
we're
what?
fine.
Okay.
Right. We live across the street from unfortunately we live across the street from a nursing home. So sometimes it's like, that's not good. But I think they were after Speeder. But I mean, Macho Man's elbow always just seemed like it connected.
Mm-hmm.
And just looked like $1 million every time he did it. And so I got to give it to the elbow drop. Because there's still people like Bailey doing it today, and every time someone goes up to the top rope and they do that, it's Macho Man.
Yep.
It's synonymous with him.
Yep.
Yeah. So what do you got for that one, sir? What do you got for your first level here?
All right. So 619 versus the Shake, Rattle, and Roll. I am in full agreement with you. It is the 619. Honky Tonk Man was a gimmick for the 80s, and just doesn't age very well. Definitely wouldn't work in today's wrestling, would not have worked in the 2000s or 2010s. And quite honestly, that move is just so weak at this point.
Oh yeah.
It's just not, I mean, it's kind of a bit move that CM Punk does, kind of usually mid-match as almost a reversal of sorts when he kind of spins the guy around and throws him into kind of a swinging neck breaker. So yeah, 619 there. I held up the post-it. You are wrong, sir. The demolition decapitation for me trumps the 5-star frog splash. As much as I respect.
Wait, I had the demo decap. It's the shooting star press.
Oh, the shooting star press. Okay, my mistake.
In the interest of, I hate to interrupt you here, sir,
yes,
but
sir.
we do have a guest.
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the spreadsheet, so
she was trying to enter the premises.
Did she come in through the side door, or what
she actually clung through the window? So,
but maybe that's why there was the cop car.
But our roving reporter Kaylin is here for Kaylin's whatever corner, and I don't know if we have comedy. I don't know if we have tragedy. I don't know if music. I mean, everything is on the table.
Maybe she's bringing the booyaka.
Well, it is 10:31 here on the East Coast, and hang on a second. Do that again.
And you're watching Perspective.
There it is. Nice.
I have not failed as a parent.
You have not.
So what do we got going on this evening? Because you have to go to bed in like 2 seconds here.
Not much. I don't really have a joke. There's been a scarcity of trying to find jokes recently. Except for that one comedian I sent you. I really love him.
Yeah, but that's a lot of explanation and ground laying, and yeah.
What's the comedian?
I have a lot of comedians that I like. I think it's like it starts with a G and it's like Gian or something.
Wow.
I'll send it to you on Instagram.
He's funny.
I was hoping she was going to say Nate
He's also
Bargatze.
an ex-theater kid, so that also makes sense too. Yeah.
So what would you like to share with our listeners and viewers this evening?
Not much. I don't know if there's really anything new. Except for I came up with a story idea, but I don't know if Tim wants me to go in depth about my really sad story concept.
I don't know. Is it about rich people shit?
No, I have another story idea that's actually about that though.
Oh.
Which, by the way, tell her well said.
Inside joke.
And that's an actual quote in the book.
It should be.
Yeah, she says that.
Nice.
All right. Well, story ideas aplenty, and you're going to bed, and you have your Lucky Charms Snuggie on, so that's good. Which she actually wore that when we went driving this evening.
Can we get her on camera to see said Snuggie?
You got to show off the Snuggie.
Very nice. Oh, wow. Very nice.
And that was her way of getting out, having to put gas in the car because she wore that. And she's like, I'm not getting out. I'm like, well, we only have 3 miles still empty. So I guess I'm getting out.
There was literally a dude that was right across from my window. I was trying not to look out the window because he was just sitting on his bike or something. And I was just like, I'm not here. The weird person in their Lucky Charms cozy. And
mission accomplished.
Nice.
All right. Well, you are going to bed, I assume, because it is now 10:34 and we're still watching Perspectives.
We are.
All right. So
whatever helps you sleep at night.
All right. Good evening. Good night. Sweet dreams. Love you.
Tell her booyaka.
Tim says booyaka. What? That triggered something. I'm scared now.
I forgot to submit my essay scholarship for scholarship. But no, I forgot to submit my scholarship. No, Henry forgot to email me.
What?
I have a scholarship that I'm applying for, and it's due today. And I was waiting for Handwright to put up his give me his letter of recommendation.
By midnight tonight?
Yes. But Handwright hasn't given me his letter of recommendation because he's the only person that can input it in because the school is.
Okay. So wait, is there any? Oh my gosh, this is on the show. Sorry.
Timestamp 25:30.
So, is this something that you can do now? So wait, have you checked your messages before you? Okay, well then I guess it ain't gonna happen. All right. Anyways, good night, sweet dreams. Any last words for our listeners or for Tim?
I'm disappointed in myself.
All right, and that wraps that up.
I just love how Booyaka apparently triggered all of this. So
I'm actually terrified how Booyaka triggered that. That's I don't even want to know what that. She doesn't even know what Booyaka means, where it comes from. It's all right. Okay,
it's from the Swahili Booyaka.
you stop. All right. Good night. Love you.
Love how you're shushing me now.
She says bye, Tim.
Bye.
He says bye. All right, so where were we?
Sir, you held it together very well. I think I would have probably lost my crap if I was in your shoes. So
yeah, it's all good. Hey, what are you gonna do?
Right.
I believe we were at the Shooting Star Press, and
yes.
Oh no, we weren't. We were at the Frog Splash and Demo Decap.
We were. So we were in agreement on this one. Demo decapitation over the 5-star Frog Splash. I believe we picked similarly for Unprettier over the coup de grace. That seemed to be the more.
How come we couldn't have gotten that, like one of each of those against the Perfect Plex and the Sharpshooter?
I don't know.
That should have actually. You should have gone in and edited that one specifically. That's like a red flag.
I don't know what to say. I think this is where we differ. So now we get to the Shooting Star Press versus the Steiner DDT, also known in the parentheses as the Doomsday DDT.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go with the Steiner DDT. The Steiners were innovators, my friend, and they brought some very
no argument
different finishers. The DDT was one. Another that they did, which we don't have listed here, is when Rick Steiner would get to the top and do basically a top rope bulldog while the opponent was sitting on the shoulders of Scott Steiner. Mm-hmm. And that I remember seeing that for the first time and that just blowing my mind because it just looked so vicious the way they did it. Mm-hmm. So I got to go with the Steiner DDT on that one. The Attitude Adjustment versus the Van Terminator.
Actually, can I just I have no problem with that because sure. I freely admit like mine is purely an aesthetic and you know, I totally valid. That was kind of a coin flip for me, really.
All right. The Attitude Adjustment versus Van Terminator. I'm going with John Cena's Attitude Adjustment.
And there we go. To hell with you.
Yeah, you know, you're wrong. Wrong. The Bonsai drop of Yokozuna versus the rocket launcher of the Midnight Express. This time I got to go with Yokozuna. The Bonsai drop was vicious. It was vicious for its time, and especially with the sight of Yoko just coming down on his opponents like that. It's just like, dang, you know, like that's going to leave a mark, sort of thing. So
did we talk about him and Lex Luger last episode?
We did about how he helped out Lex and
slammed himself essentially.
Basically, yes, we did. We did go over that.
Okay. Cool.
In the matchup of round one that makes us all weep and feel pain. We were the same on this one, sir. I also gave it to the Sharpshooter. As much as I loved Mr. Perfect's Perfect Plex, I got to go with the Sharpshooter on this one. Brett, the excellence of execution over Mr. Perfect on this one. And then we were the same on the last one as well. You know, I think the Riptide is an impressive move, but the top rope flying elbow is iconic. And I love the fact that CM Punk has brought that back into his repertoire. So I'm going to take.
I think of Bailey more now when doing that because she's been doing that a lot too.
Yeah, but where I watch more Punk, that's where I kind of go. So
yeah, and you have it out for Bailey. So
I wrote this down as the Flying Bow is my selection. Sorry.
And the funny thing is about the Perfect Plex Sharpshooter conversation is so I did my brackets fully last week. So I like had the entire thing done last week. Because I literally, we had so much confusion about what we were going to do. It was like, I'm doing the whole thing, and that way I just don't have to deal with it. Because I'm like, otherwise I will be that kid who didn't do his homework. Yep. I just didn't want to be that kid. I've been that kid way too many friggin' times.
Yep.
So I picked the Sharpshooter last week. And sitting here now, like, I am so tempted to change it because I'm like, but the Perfect Plex is so good.
Mm-hmm.
But yet I'm going to stay strong with my reasoning because I do stand by it. Like Sharpshooter's iconic.
You should.
It is.
All right. So, do you want to go through the next?
Let's get all the way to our final pick of like all the way to the end of this bracket, and then we'll do 4.
All right, go for it.
So then between the 619 and the demo decapitation, I got to go with demo decap because again, it the high impact, and it was from, even though I mean I've seen some clips of it now, and I'm like, not quite at what I remember, but it really was because I didn't watch WCW, NWA, or anything like that, so I didn't really have a background in Steiners or Road Warriors or like the high impact tag teams. This was the first tag team I'd actually seen that was just, they were brutal. They were plotting and they just beat the hell out of people. And I'd never seen that in WWF. I was used to friggin' Strike Force. And, I mean, the Heart Attack was about as high impact as it got. And then you just, the physics of this one, I was like, gah. So I got to go with that over the aesthetics of the 619. Unprettier Shooting Star Press. I mean, anything essentially over the unprettier except for coup de grace. So yeah, Shooting Star Press makes it out of that one. Then I've got Van Terminator against the Bonsai Drop. I kind of went with the Van Terminator. I went with the Van Terminator on this one sheerly for athleticism, and because I knew it was lining up against the next bracket. So then we got Sharpshooter versus the Flying Elbow. I went with the Flying Elbow. Again, like, Sharpshooter's iconic, but again, it was just so cool watching Macho Man come off the top rope, because that was back in the day. You didn't have a ton of people. It was like, it was really Macho Man and Superfly. That was it. Not a lot of other people coming off the top rope, and he did it with this grace,
panache.
And panache. There we go. Yes. So yeah, I got the Flying Elbow coming out of that one. What do you got in your brackets here, sir?
So, like, are we running all the way through?
I mean, I could if you'd like. I could finish out the bracket if you'd like, because then we could just run yours.
Why don't we do that? Why don't you keep going?
Okay. So then we've got Demo Decapitation versus Shooting Star Press. Demo Decap takes it there easily. Van Terminator against the Flying Elbow, and yeah, Flying Elbow takes that one. Then we've got Demo Decap, Demolition Decapitation by Demolition, and Macho Man Randy Savage's Flying Elbow. We're going with the Flying Elbow.
Oh, come on!
On the basis of being iconic.
I'm trying to be quiet and just hold the Post-it up, but my God, you're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
Good. What do you got, sir? I like being the agent of chaos.
You are awful. All right, here we go. So
I have put that on my resume. Like, I just want that. I want that as a blurb somewhere.
Gosh,
you are awful.
I need to take a shower after
man.
They
show. Called him.
Cleanse myself.
Yeah, you go right ahead. Sit there in the bottom and just cry with your bottle of Wild Turkey.
No kidding. All right, so I had the 619 versus Demo Decap. I went also with Demo Decap. I have the Unprettier versus the Steiner DDT. I went with the Steiner DDT.
Ooh, so you got a tag team matchup there. That's nice.
You know it. Okay. I have the Attitude Adjustment versus the Bonsai Drop, and you can't see him. His time is now, but Yokozuna's Bonsai Drop saw him and put him out of his misery. So I'm going to go with the Bonsai Drop on that one, because that was devastating. Like, that was just a devastating maneuver, and I got to give it its due. Attitude Adjustment had its place, but Bonsai Drop, I just feel is that much better.
Okay.
Sharpshooter versus the Macho Man Flying Bow. I'm going to go with a Sharpshooter on this one. That is the right choice, ladies and gentlemen. The Sharpshooter over the Flying Bow. It is top notch, and the excellence of execution.
For the record here, I want it noted that I am the much more open and accepting person here, who's like, you know what, it's fine. If that's your opinion, man. And you're just like, you're wrong. You're a horrible person. You're
right, and there's wrong.
I wish you had a porcupine enema.
Kind of. All right. So then in the next round, I have the Demo Decapitation versus the Steiner DDT in a tag team versus tag team finisher matchup. I don't know, folks. Rarity. I got to give it to the Demo Decapitation on this one. So moving that forward in a similar fashion. And then in the other bracket, I have the Bonsai Drop versus the Sharpshooter, which is a throwback to WrestleMania 10's main event, where Bret Hart tried to put the Sharpshooter on Yokozuna and failed miserably. and therefore I'm going to give it to Yokozuna with the Bonsai Drop.
Wow. Okay.
I am.
And
Actually, no, I'm sorry.
so-
WrestleMania. Oh, no, it was 10 in Madison Square Garden. Yes. So now I have the demo decapitation versus the Bonsai Drop. And this is where, unfortunately, my leanings toward the 1980s comes to play, and the the demolition decapitation wins the day and advances into as number 3 of my final 4.
Alrighty. Well, that's
so.
interesting.
And so, who did you end up going with, or what did you end up going with for your pick in your final?
Macho Man Randy Savage,
the elbow,
flying elbow,
the flying elbow. Okay, very nice. I love how in here, I don't think we had. Did we have Hogan's leg drop anywhere?
Hell no.
Okay, good. I'm glad to see we.
Hell no.
Let's see, we eliminated that early and often.
I like Finn Balor's coup de grace wins over that.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh. All right.
We eliminated that in a play-in.
Yeah, I didn't even consider that for a moment. Like when I made my initial list, I'm like, no, that shan't be happening.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Here, I'm going to actually call my first 30-second timeout of the night.
Okay.
And I will rejoin you for bracket 4.
Sounds good, sir.
6.5 hours later.
All right, we are back now with bracket 4, sir. You want to run these down for us?
Indeed. So in bracket 4, we have Drew McIntyre's Claymore versus Brock Lesnar's F5. In our next matchup, we have Shawn Michaels' Sweet Chin Music, not to be confused with Stevie Richards' Sweet Shin Music. Versus,
well, no, I thought it was Dude Love that did the Sweet Shin Music.
You know what? You're right. For some reason I thought that was a Stevie Richards thing, but no, you're absolutely right. That was Dude Love. Versus Cody Rhodes' Crossroads, which we spoke about in our Week in Geek.
Yeah,
we will talk about that. We have the final boss with his Rock Bottom against the $1 Million Man. That was my bad $1 Million Man impression. $1 Million Dream, which Uncle Todd has put in parentheses, sleeper hold. We have in our next matchup Jeff Hardy's Swanton Bomb versus Charlotte Flair's Figure 8 leg lock.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have Lex Luger's Torture Rack against Goldberg's Jackhammer. Our next matchup in bracket 4 is Gangrel's Jumping DDT versus Diesel/Kevin Nash's Jackknife Powerbomb. In our next to last matchup, we have Ravishing Rick Rude's Rude Awakening, which was really nothing more than a neckbreaker, against Victoria's Widow's Peak. And then we have, in our final matchup of bracket 4, the Dudley Boys 3D Dudley Death Drop against Kurt Angle's Ankle Lock. Some tough choices to be made here, sir. Some tough choices. Not nearly at the level of Bret Hart versus Mr. Perfect, but there are some tough choices here.
Very true. Very true.
What are some of your picks in this first round of bracket 4?
I went with the F5 over the Claymore. Just the finisher being like a kick out of the corner. Like, okay, yeah, it can look brutal. It can sound brutal. Brock Lesnar just manhandling people. It just made that look so violent.
Well, the fact that it's like he's like he's just tossing them in this sort of, spinning fashion is just kind of a crazy visual.
It's one of those things where you're like, yeah, that guy is such a physical specimen. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Like that he can even complete that maneuver on other very large human beings.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Most impressive.
Sweet Chin Music versus Crossroads to me is one. It's weird because the super kick has become so devalued.
Oh my gosh, yes.
As a move. Go see last year's WrestleMania if you really are up for just being frustrated and watch the Usos matchup.
Or go watch a Young Bucks match in AEW.
Or just don't. And then Crossroads, which has been devalued just because of the guy who's been using it.
Cody's got to hit it 5 times before he puts anyone away.
Oh my gosh. And usually like 3 times in a row.
Yeah.
Which is just terrible. However, the fact is, like, it's one of those deals where almost like with Jake the Snake now talking about the DDT, where he's like, I don't care if people don't, use it as a transitional move now. He's like, when I did it, nobody kicked out of it.
Yep.
He's like, so they're obviously not doing it right. Like when it's not Jake's DDT, because when he did it, that knocked people out.
Yeah.
And it's one of those deals where I'm going to go with Sweet Chin Music, because when Michaels did it, it was a finisher and it took people's ass out the majority of the time. And even now, good God, the one he delivered on Kevin Owens, I was like, that man is my age. I couldn't get my foot up like that. If I did, I would be going ass over tea kettle. I wouldn't have been coming back up to an upright position. So it has to get the nod over Crossroads. This next one, I fully admit I fudged this one, because the rock bottom is not a finisher. It's the setup move. You could say it's the bookend, but even then, the bookend, it wasn't really a finisher for Booker T. It's a setup move to the finisher. But in the Rock's case, the finisher was so ridiculous, I could not in good conscience put the People's Elbow on this list. So I went with this one. So honestly, this was almost like Finn Balor's coup de grace. Like, I'm going to pick whatever is up against this one, because I cannot pick it, because it never put anyone away, really, unless I'm not remembering something. So $1 Million Dream gets it for me, because also, like, I do love the fact that, like, it's an old school move, and I love the fact that Gunther has kind of brought it back and made it go right ahead. I don't care. You're just sore because I deliver the rock bottom to you on a route, and you've had back problems ever since.
I have not. I sold that like a champ.
You did much better than I would have. So I'm going to go with the sleeper on that one. As much as I kind of appreciate Charlotte Flair putting her spin on the figure four, because there's no way you're going to get around. I mean, she's Charlotte Flair. Like, she's using her dad's last name. She's using the whole deal. Like, seeing her put a spin on the figure four is interesting, in that, saying like her bridging upwards from it puts extra torque on it and all that. Like, I buy the explanation. Someone who's into kinesiology and physiology could probably tell me it's absolute horsepucky, but whatever. It works for me in wrestling logic. As much as I like that, dude, the Swanton it's one of those aesthetically pleasing moves. And it's also terrifying, because you're like, good God, if he doesn't rotate, we're going to watch someone like paralyze themselves. So there's a lot of things going on there. So I went to the Swanton on that one, just because surely for the aesthetics, even though there is an aesthetic beauty to Charlotte Flair doing the figure eight, like that bridging. There's something about it that just makes you go, ugh, that sort of thing. Yeah. But I got to give the Swanton the nod there. The torture rack, I basically this one I picked just because I was running short of things. I couldn't think of anything else. It was never that impressive to me. Jackhammer always looked impressive, because it was like one of 4 moves that Goldberg did, except they had that match against William Regal where he actually had to wrestle. He always just made this look like $1 million, and that's because Bill Goldberg was a brute. Like, he was a beast of a man who could lift and yeet people around like, a Brock Lesnar before Brock Lesnar. Of course, now he looks like a carbon copy of a carbon copy of Brock Lesnar, but whatever. So I went with the jackhammer. Here's one I struggled with. 2 variations of a move that were kind of unique to each person, that neither one of them I thought improved on it that much to be worthy of a variation. Maybe you can explain this one to me, because I watched and I'm like, I don't get how the jackknife powerbomb is different from a regular powerbomb. Like the jumping, like the impaler DDT, the jumping DDT. Like, I get that, like he jumps. Okay. Yeah. I don't get how the jackknife powerbomb is different than a regular powerbomb. Can you explain that one to me?
As I remember it, when Sid Justice or Sid Vicious would do, because he was the one who I originally saw the power bomb, from. He would do it in a way where he would flip the opponent in up into the position and then just plant them down on the mat. When Kevin Nash would do it, he in some ways, like when he would flip the person to the upright position, he almost like threw them a little bit.
Okay.
And so there was a little like that's and I mean it's a very minor detail to me in it, because I get what you're saying, but I feel like it's enough of a differentiation of it where it wasn't like he took the person and threw them, but there was a little bit of a throw to it.
Okay.
Where
now
Sid
I
was
kinda
more of a
remember that.
flip and just down.
Yeah, which was how I remember Vader doing it, and
Right.
like most people, like even Gunter when he does his powerbomb now, like that is how
And
you do
Vader,
it.
to his credit, when he did the bit on Foley, when Foley disappeared for a few months, this is a WCW.
Oh, this was on the ramp, right? Or was this on the floor?
This was on the concrete floor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Props to Vader for that. Guy did a power bomb, but when you watch Vader do the power bomb, he is trying to stay as low as humanly possible,
Oh, yeah.
so as to keep the amount of space between Foley and the concrete as minimal as possible.
Yeah.
And I
He
remember
took care of
watching
it as
him
best
do
he
that,
could.
and you could, like, when Vader did a power bomb in the ring, it looked like a friggin' death move.
Mm-hmm.
When Vader did it on the outside, you could tell he was protecting Mick,
Yeah.
and rightfully so. I mean,
And it still looked good though.
Oh, it looked phenomenal, but
if you know like the whole thing behind it, you can
Right.
totally see it. Yeah.
damn that. I was thinking we didn't have Vader, but Vader was last week, so never mind.
Well, the Vader bomb was the
Vader bomb.
the thing where he like launched himself and flat out.
Right, it was kind of like a reverse bonsai because
Yeah.
he, instead of sitting on the guy, he would just splash them from the top, or
which
from
was
the mid.
terrible to watch. Like that's just not a good day for anyone, except for Leon. He probably came out of that all right. The other person, not
Leon got paid. Let's just say that.
I went with the Impaler DDT just because it looked more impressive.
Yep.
And I guess I don't know. Maybe I got something against Kevin Nash. I don't know. But then Rude Awakening versus Widow's Peak. I mean, I didn't know that much about Victoria, and
If you look up Widow's Peak, it's a nasty looking finisher.
I did. I
Compared to the
YouTubed
Rude
it.
Awakening.
The thing with the Rude Awakening though is it's old school, and the fact is like it's one of those things where I got to give credit for the fact that Rick Rude sold it. Like the way that he was so deliberate in the way that he would turn the opponent around and then just it was a snap.
Yeah.
Like there was the execution of it was just so good, and the fact that it is kind of lame, but he sold it so well that you would buy it as like that dude's done. I'm giving it to the Rude Awakening. This was the toughest one for me. This was damn near close to sharpshooter perfect plex territory. The 3D versus the ankle lock, because literally the ankle lock could legit be a submission move. Like that is a thing you could break someone's leg if you wanted to. But man, the Dudley Boys, the 3D is just so iconic, and the table, whether it was with a table or not a table, it just looked like one of those things. Is like, yeah, that person probably needs hospitalization or a butt ton of Advil tonight.
Well, the timing on the 3D too. I mean, you're talking about not just doing an RKO or like a diamond cutter. It's like you're catching. Well, no, sorry. It's basically doing a midair RKO.
Yeah. With assistance
and doing that consistently every single night with your opponents, like that is an impressive move, and it looks impressive, and it looks even more impressive when you put the person through a table.
Yes. And so quite honestly, in a coin flip, 3D gets it.
All right.
What do you got, sir, for this round?
And remind me, because I was researching, I think one of the other finishers we have here. So for Rock and $1 Million Man, you gave it to $1 Million Man, right?
I did, yes.
And then with Jeff Hardy and Charlotte Flair, who'd you give it to?
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy, okay. So for Claymore versus F5, I gave it to the F5. Claymore, I think, is a great move. Highlighted by last year's WrestleMania, where McIntyre came out of nowhere and just nailed Rollins with it. Like it's one of those moves that you can just bust out like that. Like it's not quite RKO like, but it's in the ballpark,
Yeah, and that was a great use of it for sure.
Absolutely. So, but F5 is just, it's such a vicious move. And when you have someone like Lesnar doing it, and the way that, he just throws the person over his shoulders and then just like spins them off and just drops them down. It's vicious. So,
well, and there's something to be said for like, and the reason why I would imagine the bonsai drop went so far for you is like, literally only a few people could even attempt that move and make it look that good. Now, in Yoko's case, it was because he was of girth, of just size.
Right.
In Brock Lesnar's case, like there's very few people who have functional strength that will allow them to do that to another human being that is even close to their size.
Yeah.
That, like, the physics prohibit most people from doing that.
Right.
So you kind of have to like you kind of have to give some extra points for that, I think.
Yeah. In the next match between the Super Kick and Crossroads, I honestly
Crossroads, right?
I wanted to give it to Crossroads. As of last week, when I went through and did all my picks, I did actually pick Crossroads. The thing I struggled with was what we talked about, which is, I want to buy it as Cody's finisher, but I do feel like the matches with Reigns and Lesnar have damaged it a bit because of the fact that he had to throw it on them so many times.
Yes.
And, maybe it's part of the mythology of those characters or whatever, but at the end of the day, like, if we're picking, this is the finisher of all finishers, and when Michaels threw the Super Kick on, that was it. It was game over, man, game over. And
are
so,
you finished?
Fair enough. So I'm going with a Super Kick on this one, as much as I wanted Crossroads, because I do think Crossroads,
even after this past Monday, even with John Cena's sell, you're still feeling that way.
Well, he did,
because that almost changed my mind.
John Cena sold it because of the situation. If they were fighting in the match, I guarantee you we're going to see him kick out of it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And we're going to see Cody kick out of the attitude adjustment. Like both of them they're going to do the false finishes with both of them.
That is the tough thing with finishers these days. Is there's very few finishers that are actual finishers.
Yep.
But like Rhea Ripley threw a razor's edge on Io Sky.
Adjudicate. And I am adjudicating
90% through the match, and she kicked out, and I was so pissed off about that. I'm like, come on, show a little respect.
Yep. Anyways. So I'm going to go with the Super Kick.
All right.
For the Rock Bottom versus the $1 Million Dream, I feel like the Rock Bottom was the more impressive move. I understand, your situation with the $1 Million Man and it being old school, but I felt the Rock Bottom, if we had Booker T in this one, it would have been the bookend, but we're going with the Rock on this one. So I'm going to go Rock Bottom advances here. For Jeff Hardy, Swanton Bomb versus the figure 8 leg lock with Charlotte Flair. I actually like the fact that she adds the bridge to it. I think it's a nice way to increase upon the, the purported, leverage that comes with that finisher that her father did. And so I'm going to go with a figure 8 on that one. As much as I like the Swanton Bomb, I think Charlotte kind of built upon an old school move that and enhanced it. As much as I wanted Lex Luger to move forward with the torture rack, because that was an impressive move of the time, but it's really the matchup. I mean, going up against the Jackhammer, the Jackhammer was part of Goldberg's mystique. I mean, he just had this move where he just got people up and just jammed him down into the mat, and that was it.
Well, and he held them up there for a little while too. Sometimes.
Oh yeah.
And so it almost became like a stalling suplex or something, where that was like, holy hell.
And I mean, just the timing and the snap of the way that he would rotate them down was just, I mean, it just made it look devastating. So got to go with the Jackhammer. I'm with you. The Impaler DDT versus the Jackknife Powerbomb. I'm going with the Impaler DDT. That when Gangrel first came on the scene in WWE and debuted that finisher, I remember sitting up in my seat when he did that. Because it just looked so damn impressive. And it was so cool to see someone take a move that Jake the Snake, who was another kind of dark spirit sort of wrestler character, the way he legitimized that. And then when you see Gangrel kind of do this move where he jumps up and essentially does the DDT, but just in a different way, just really enjoyed that. And so I got to give the nod to that. Kevin Nash's powerbomb was impressive. Unfortunately for the matchups we did here, we didn't have Sid Vicious / Sid Justice. Probably if we did a Sid versus Kevin match, a matchup of finishers, I would have given it to Sid's powerbomb. Sid, not that he was the originator, but he just he brought a viciousness to it that
I probably should have had him in there.
And I missed
honestly.
it. I reviewed this and actually added some names in, and I completely forgot about him. So,
well, I mean, how much would it change it if you had Sid Vicious versus Gangrel?
I might have honestly. I might have if Sid was in place of Kevin Nash, I might have advanced Sid.
Should we amend it right now?
No,
Maybe
should.
We
not.
can.
No,
okay.
No.
We can.
Matchups are now locked. Picks are now.
I mean,
locked.
I would still go with the Impaler over it. So I mean, if you wanted to do it, you could.
I'm standing by the Impaler DDT in this case. So
fair enough.
But I appreciate the offer.
And just out of curiosity, so I mean, I think at this point, I think Mick Foley was doing a double arm DDT.
Yes,
at this point
he did.
So I mean, but there wasn't a lot of variations on the DDT. So you have the double arm,
right? You have the double arm,
and then you had Gangrel with the Impaler. Then you had Rock doing kind of that float over DDT, which I will say, for all the crap I give Rock about his sharpshooter, the float over DDT that he does is actually a thing of beauty.
It is.
It just unfortunately it's never been a finisher, which I feel is devaluing. But
the thing I wish, so another name I wish we had added to this would be Cactus Jack doing what I believe they call the stunt pile driver, which was where he did not get someone up in the full pile driver position, but rather what he would do is he would put the head between his legs and he would grab the sides of his opponent.
Yes.
And he would start to rotate them up, but he would immediately go down into the pile driver maneuver. And that was vicious. That looked sick when he would do it.
I think he called it the stump puller.
Or is it stump pile driver? Yeah, something like
stump puller, or stump pile driver. Yeah, but it's almost like to me, the first thing I want to call it is a sawed off pile driver.
Yeah, it's very different, and I think sawed off is a good moniker, good illustration for it, because it is not the complete.
Feel free to use that if you want, Mick. It's a gift.
What's that?
I said, feel free to use that if you want, Mick. It's a gift.
There you go. So a second to last matchup was Ravishing Rick Rude's Rude Awakening versus Victoria's Widow's Peak. I'm going to advance the Widow's Peak. I felt like it was much more impressive.
Enough. Yeah.
And then for the last pick, the 3D versus the ankle lock. This was a tough one, but I ended up going with the 3D.
Yeah.
3D.
This is another one where I kind of wish we'd had the ankle lock up against, I don't know, the $1 Million Dream or something like that, where it'd be easier to get this matchup down the line a little bit. But whatever.
Do you want me to run through the rest of my picks?
You can if you want. Sure. You're on a run now, sir. You go. Go.
All right. So I have the F5 versus the Super Kick. Unfortunately, this was a no-brainer. It's the F5 all the way. It was a much more vicious move than the Super Kick. Next, I have the Rock Bottom versus the Figure 8. I'm going to go with the Rock Bottom on this one. And then I had the Jackhammer versus the Impaler DDT. This was a tough one. I wanted to move the Impaler forward, but the Jackhammer was such a part of Goldberg's mystique, and in a lot of ways was, that was a finisher to end the match. It was not. It has rarely been false finished, and so I kind of gave that the nod.
Well, because there was so many squash matches in his streak that you just ended up seeing like every jabroni in the world take that, and they were just dead.
Yep.
And
then I had the Widow's Peak versus the 3D, and as much as I find Victoria's move impressive, the 3D to me is iconic, and I moved that forward, so it's moving right along. And so now I have the F5 versus the Rock Bottom and the Jackhammer versus the 3D. In those matchups, I advanced the F5 over the Rock Bottom. Felt the F5 was the more impressive finisher. This was a hard one. Jackhammer versus the 3D. But I have a soft spot for the Dudleys, and as much as Goldberg was impressive, I just feel like the Dudleys 3D was just, in the 90s when they were in their heyday and their peak. That was just such an impressive move. So I have to advance that forward. So it'll be the F5 versus the 3D for the fourth and final coveted spot in the final four of the finisher of all finishers. Shall I go forward with my pick?
Yes. My gosh, don't like,
So
leave us hanging here.
In the finishing moves of 2 letters or less, the F5 versus the 3D.
A letter and number combination bracket.
Which is, that's kind of funny, which offset each other.
It's like the freaking the Enigma bracket from World War II.
Basically. The move that will be facing off against the demolition decapitation will be the 3D. I advanced the 3D over the F5.
Way to go. I'm glad to see that actually happen. Nice.
So that is my final fourth and final slot. So my 4 moves that we'll adjudicate in a moment are the DDT versus the GTS and the demolition decapitation against the 3D.
You just needed one more abbreviation in there. The demo decapitation stands out. It's like it's like War and Peace compared to all of the other moves that you have. For God's sake, sir.
Absolutely. All right. Walk me through your picks here, sir. For your
brevity is your thing, man. All right. So F5 versus Sweet Chin Music. I had to go with the F5, of course. Sleeper, $1 Million Dream, Sleeper versus the Swanton Bomb. I'm going with the Swanton on this.
Wow.
Yeah, because I like the Sleeper was a nod to the old school, and then it's like, okay, that nod is done. We have the Jackhammer versus the Impaler DDT, as you did. This is kind of tough because, the Impaler DDT was impressive. It was the first variation of the DDT that I had seen because I wasn't watching Cactus Jack in ECW. Or WCW for that matter. So I never saw the double arm DDT. However, Jackhammer, dude. I mean, come on, it's Goldberg. It's much more impressive. It's more iconic. And Gangrel, for as cool of a gimmick as that was, not exactly one of the titans of the, he's not going to make anyone's Mount Rushmore. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
Then I got Rude Awakening versus 3D. Mostly the reason why I went with a Rude Awakening is, again, it's a nod to the old school, and I saw the other half of this bracket, and I'm like, it doesn't matter either of these moves. They're going up against the 3D, so of course the 3D wins, which then leaves me with the F5 versus the Swanton Bomb. F5 easy, again. That's where just brutality wins out over aesthetics. Then we have the Jackhammer versus the 3D, which I believe is your matchup as well.
Yes.
And again, you could make an argument for how huge Goldberg was for WCW, that this is much more important. However, I'm freely now going to throw my bias card on the table. I was a WWF/WWE kid. This is what we were watching, and when the Dudleys premiered on the WWF, I was like, holy crap, I've never seen anything like this. And I believe you had told me that these guys were coming.
Yeah.
And when I first saw them, I think my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, what the hell am I seeing here? I'm not prepared for this. So 3D wins in this one.
Nice.
Which then leaves me with the exact same thing you had, F5 versus 3D, and I am also going to go with a 3D. So my final 4 is the Stone Cold Stunner versus the Razor's Edge, and the Macho Man Top Rope Elbow versus the 3D.
Nice.
So out of your regions 1 and 2, the first half of your final 4 is, again, it's the DDT versus the
GTS.
What? Who you got, sir?
Well, this was a tough one.
It is. I mean,
because
old school and new school, but still new school that's old school.
Indeed.
That's a very weird sort of comp.
Indeed.
Oh my gosh.
There are a couple things. One is it being a purely...
Ladies and gentlemen, sit down. Tim is about to give you a TED Talk.
No, this will be quick. It is, as far as it being purely a new created move, and the fact that both this person and their opponent were absolutely insane enough to do this on a concrete floor, I got to go with the DDT. As much as I love Punk and the GTS,
we talking about Ricky Steamboat here?
I am talking about Ricky Steamboat and Jake the Snake Roberts.
And legit, like, knocked him out because he's like, oh, I can take it. And he's like, all right.
I don't know how you're going to protect yourself, and he was right.
That is such an old school thing of like, whatever.
Yep.
I gotta eat.
So yeah, in regions 1 and 2, I'm going to go with the DDT on this one. How about you, sir? What is your region 1 and 2 pick? You have Stone Cold Stunner versus Razor's Edge. What are you picking?
Man, both are iconic, and both have been kind of absconded with by other wrestlers later on. One, asking permission. The other, unfortunately, not getting a chance to really ask permission. I believe. I don't know if Damien ever crossed paths with Razor.
Yeah.
But again, like, I remember Razor Ramon towards the very end of my kind of WWF watching days, and then came back, of course, during the Attitude Era when we were roommates, and you kind of pulled me back into this world. And I remembered, I'm like, oh crap, I really like this. I forgot how much I really enjoy this, kind of foolish malarkey that is professional wrestling. Like, it's fun. Razor's Edge is devastating looking, and it is so impressive from an aesthetic point of view. The fact that you get the person up, hoisted up in like a crucifix position, and then yeet them across the ring onto their shoulders. It is one of those things you're like, I could legit see how that would knock someone the F out. Stone Cold, though, with that, it is the sneak attack and the dirtiness of it, of the setup with the boot to the gut, which is almost, to me, it's inseparable from the stunner. It is one move, even though it's technically two. It has to happen because it's not the RKO, it's not the diamond cutter that comes out of nowhere. It's a 1-2. That's just the way it is. And just usually it was kind of like, there was such almost like, even when he was a face, there was a underhandedness to the kick to the gut, that I just appreciated, that made that character. It was iconic to the character because the character was this guy who, like, even though he's the good guy, he's still kind of the bad guy. Which, in a way, because you have the bad guy versus the bad guy, and in a way, even when he's the good guy, he's still the bad guy, that kind of makes him the badder guy. So I'm going with Stone Cold Steve Austin's Stunner out of those two regions.
Nice.
So that is the first half of my championship bracket.
Nice.
And now in your regions 3 and 4, we had the 3D coming out of 4. Remind me who you had in 3.
Demolition Decapitation.
Tag
team finisher versus tag team finisher.
Oh, I love this, dude. There's so few great tag team finishers, dude. I'm glad you, at least you've kind of got down to this point.
This is where I feel like the randomized matchups at least open the door for this to be a thing. I was kind of afraid we were going to go with 4, kind of singles finishers, but the way this kind of worked out, I feel it we had a path to a couple options here. And so for this matchup of Demolition versus 3D, I don't know who would win in an actual match, but in this case,
I think it's got to be the Dudleys, dude.
My finals matchup is going to be Jake the Snake Roberts DDT. It's going to be an all 80s matchup because it's going to be Demolition advancing into the finals against Jake the Snake's DDT.
Dun, 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 dun.
That's right. Here comes the axe, and here comes the Smasher.
Walking disaster.
The Demolition walking disaster.
So I got to ask you this question, dude, because have you ever been kind of partial to tag team wrestling? Because I know that we've both been primarily WWF, WWE guys, and we both know that Vince just hated tag teams. And if he didn't hate them, like, he was never partial to it, and kind of there was a self-loathing about the fact
I
that
feel
he
like he
had
hated
tag
them.
teams.
He hated them once they moved out of the 80s into the 90s. I think during the 80s, he or his whatever you want to call the creative team at the time, did a good job promoting and building up, really good matchups like the American Express, Mike Rotunda and Barry Windham versus the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov, working the USA versus Russia, Iran thing, which then kind of moved into the British Bulldogs versus the Hart Foundation. And then there were the Islanders that you could work into that. So you had those three teams going for a while. And then he did his own version of the Road Warriors when he brought Demolition in, and they were so different. And the way he marketed them, the music they had, I mean, just everything about Demolition.
Yeah.
You almost have to feel a little bit bad for the Road Warriors because they were the ones trailblazing that gimmick. But Vince found a way to do it in a super compelling way where like they became faces because the fans, it was kind of, I kind of credit them as being one of the first like heels that people kind of started to cheer because they were just so damn cool.
Oh yeah, they were.
Like they would come in and beat the crap out of people, and the fans just started to cheer them because it was just fun to watch them beat the crap out of people.
Yeah, and that Rick Derringer theme, man.
Oh my gosh, yeah, like just to hear like that hit.
It feels like a first draft of the Stone Cold theme.
Yes,
really. Like Jim Johnston totally was like, okay, let me go back to the archives, and well, technically we own it. So I'm not plagiarizing.
And then, Demolition, they held the tag titles for damn near almost 3 years. Like they were champion, like they were almost like the Hulk Hogan of the tag team division because they held the championships for so long. And then they, they ended up losing them to, I think they lost them to they lose them to the Brainbusters? I think they did. And then they won them back, and then they lost them to Andre and Haku.
Yeah, but I mean that was also like the fact that they were losing. I can't remember. Was it Bill Eadie?
Oh, so
the other guys. So one
this is how it worked. They lost them to the Brainbusters, Arn and Tully.
Yeah,
which was a great. I mean, that was a best 2 out of 3 falls. That was phenomenal. Won them back, after a few months because I think Arn and Tully were gone within a year, and then they lost them to Andre and Haku only to win them back at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And when they won them back at WrestleMania, that was the start of the end because then they added Crush because Bill Eadie was wrapping up his career.
Yeah.
And
they were doing the Freebird thing where it was like some combination of the three of them.
Right. So yeah, it was some combination of 3 of them that would defend the belts. And I think that's where the Hart Foundation won the tag belts again as faces, as baby faces. But that was kind of the beginning of the end of Demolition. And then I think that was when the Road Warriors came in, and I think the Road Warriors were the ones that put Demo out permanently.
Yeah. Old Yellered them for all intents and purposes.
But that was, to me, like, that's what made the 80s so interesting is because you had all these personalities like Hogan and Jake the Snake. I mean, Jake the Snake is one of these guys that was so popular. He was like the most popular wrestler who didn't hold a championship.
True. Did he win any singles gold in WWF?
No, he never held a title.
Not even an IC reign?
No, he made runs at titles, but he said in I don't forget if he said this in the biography show with him, but he said he has said in interviews like he's like I didn't need it. He's like I didn't need the championship. It's like I had built this character that people just reacted to, and so I just needed to play with that, and I didn't need to get into the politics and everything with Hogan and stuff like that. So, so he was wise, I think, in some ways. And then, on top of, the fact he had the drug problem. So,
well, but there is something to that. Like if you have that character, like even right now, like CM Punk doesn't need a championship.
No,
like it's good for him to be chasing one, but he can have interesting feuds without a belt involved. And those are the guys that you really need. Those are the guys that you really need to keep things interesting.
Dare I say, I think McIntyre Punk was more intense and interesting than Reigns Cody Rhodes. That trilogy of matches to me was a more complete body of work than Rhodes.
Oh
versus
yeah,
Reigns.
well, because I mean that you have basically one match, or was it? No, oh, so you had two.
You had
with-
3 matches. You had the SummerSlam match, and then you had.
Are we talking Reigns, Cody?
Oh, sorry, I was talking about Punk McIntyre.
Because Cody Reigns, we had 2.
Cody
Unless
Reigns, we
I'm
had
missing
2.
one.
You're right.
So I mean, yeah, I'd give it the nod there. It is.
But it's, as far as intensity between the two principals,
yeah, no, I'm
McIntyre and Punk, you literally thought were going to tear each other apart.
Yes, it's very close. I would give the nod to Punk McIntyre, but it is close because the others are fighting for a championship, and it's tough to separate that from Cody's journey at that point.
Right. And I think where I don't see it being close is Cody's pursuing a dream. Punk and McIntyre hate each other. Reigns is in the way of Cody achieving the dream. Reigns is an egotistical, self-centered individual who needs to be dropped down a peg.
Yeah.
And Cody happens to be the one who can do that. And so those two stories are very different, but to me the intensity around, to your point, the fact that Punk McIntyre had, I feel like they had a more intense feud than Rhodes and Reigns was.
It's that whole deal of it's not about the championship. It's the championship of each other.
Yes. Yeah.
And there is that. And it's sort of like, Andre didn't need a title.
Yep.
And actually I'm going to post this in the show notes because I came across this today and I want to share it, even though there's a billion people who listen to it because it's Jim Cornette and everybody listens to Jim Cornette if they're interested in wrestling. Mm-hmm. But he had a listener ask if Andre the Giant were in WWE today, would he stand out? And I won't give away the totality of Jim's explanation, but the way the person who phrased it was would he be the shit, or would he just would he be the shits, or would he be huge? And Jim's like, I think he would be the biggest thing in the world. He says, but however, you have to think about which Andre are you talking about? Are you talking about the Andre back in the 70s when he first was kind of becoming a star, and he was he could work and do drop kicks and this and that and the other and all that, and then by the time he's in the late 70s and everybody knows about him and he's humongous, if you're talking that athletic Andre before he broke his broke his ankle, before that happens, and he could do all this stuff and he could work and he had the psychology and the personality and all that, he'd be the most gigantic thing in the world.
Yeah.
He would own wrestling. It's such a great clip because it also kind of illustrates Cornette can be a complete blowhard and knows he's doing it because he's cutting a promo to get views, but then he starts getting into this inside sort of inside baseball of wrestling, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot this guy's forgotten more about wrestling than anyone else will ever know. He truly loves this stuff on a level that few people can comprehend.
Yeah.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes because it's interesting. But
I think we need to get back to the business at hand.
Yeah, I got sidetracked by asking you about tag team wrestling because the thing was I
took the bait because I like to wax poetic about such things. So the 80s were a golden era until the 2000s of tag team wrestling, and then the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys, to me, are the ones who reignited it.
Yeah, and to summarize my thoughts on it, I kind of go along with Bubba Ray when he says how he looked at tag team wrestling as well, there's 4 guys as opposed to 2. There's that much more possibilities.
Yeah.
For a match.
Yep.
And that's why I appreciate a really good tag team and a really good tag team match, is because there's so many more things that can happen. And even though a lot of them follow kind of the same shape of a story, if you do it really well, it's still really good.
That's why I loved in ECW when they paired up Sabu with Rob Van Dam, who individually, the two of them were both superstars individually on their own, but when they brought them together in a tag team, to Bubba Ray's point, I mean, now there are all these different possibilities of the two of them just doing these insane aerial maneuvers, and Sabu was a psychopath, in the ring and out of the ring, and Rob Van Dam was just putting his body on the line, doing crazy aerial stunts.
Neither one of them had regard for their future health.
No.
Good God.
But that's the thing. I, as a fan, especially in the 90s, that was something that intrigued me, though. Like, I liked them as a tag team. And I'm not if I articulate this the right way, but one of the things that I really appreciated about Rob Van Dam was the way he worked both as the world television champion in ECW and as a tag champion with Sabu. Like, it made him seem, if he wasn't already special, it made him seem that much more special, because it's like, now I've got someone who's like, in some ways, he was like the Bret the Hitman Hart of ECW. He was someone who you saw as a viable tag wrestler with Sabu. And at the same time, he was this viable singles wrestler in the way that Bret Hart was. He could hold his own, and I think he ended up being one of the longest reigning television champions. He was like 2.5 years until he got injured and had to forfeit the title because he couldn't compete. And so I just remember, like, that's something I appreciated for, like, the things that I enjoyed about ECW and WCW were the way they explored presentation of different superstars in a way that was different from WWE. You never saw a double champion in WWE. That just never happened until we finally got to like the late 90s, and they started to open up a little bit more to more creative things, because quite frankly, they were facing an existential threat from WCW, and they had to do things that were different. And so, and I think Vince saw Paul Heyman doing those things in ECW and saw how fans reacted to him. And it's like, okay, this is a way that I can frame a superstar. Like, this guy is kind of like a 5-tool player. He can be both a strong singles champion and be a tag champion as well. And so I feel like in a lot of ways, Paul Heyman trailblazed that in when he could showcase those things in ECW. I think that's when Vince felt it was safer to go that route, because he could see the example that Heyman set in ECW. And so you know how to bait me into a lot.
Well, and that goes back to then, Paul's promo in front of Vince, where he just tears him a new a-hole.
Yeah.
You want someone to do a shoot promo? Paul do a shoot promo, tear your ass about that yay wide.
Oh,
as Michael Hayes once said.
Yes, he will. Yes.
Where the hell were we? Did you even give us your final?
I did.
Winner?
So my finals bracket is Jake the Snake Roberts DDT. It's an all 80s bracket. Jake the Snake Roberts DDT versus Demolition's.
Oh, and you went to the
decapitation.
DDT, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So no, I just did my finals. I have not done my final.
Oh, you
pick.
haven't?
No.
Okay.
I was waiting for you to get us to the finals. What are your finals?
Well, my finals are the Stone Cold Stunner versus the 3D.
Oh my.
Yeah, all Attitude Era.
Nicely done. Well, hey, at least we have some diverse representation here. We
do.
But you, sir, have correctly identified my finals pick of this field of 64. I have a sweet spot, a affection, if you will, for Jake the Snake's DDT. It was an original move that he kind of created almost by accident, but became such a unique and identifying aspect of his character that when you hear those 3 letters, you can't help and you're a wrestling fan, you can't help but think about this guy.
Yeah.
And yes, this move has been taken and bastardized and turned into something that is somewhat meaningless nowadays. But when he did it in the 80s, it was shocking. It was a death blow. It was the end. And for me, this move is the finisher of all finishers. So I got to go with the DDT.
Fair enough, dude, and an excellent choice.
Thank you. And Demolition Decapitation was, I think, similar for tag team wrestling. I think it looked so vicious and so painful the way that Demolition would do it. And I think a big part of it was the physics behind it. Like when you saw Bill Eadie drop the elbow, and the opponent would just like rotate, from back to face and just fall down. I mean, it looked vicious the way they did it. And I just felt that and they were just such a vicious team as it was. It just fit their character. So I think the commonality in my finals is these 2 finishers were a lot were really tied to the character of the ones executing it. And in the case of Jake the Snake, it was just that much stronger. So I had to go with that. But for you have Stone Cold versus 3D. It's an all 90s Attitude Era affair here. So what are you going with?
Well, I think I need you to help me out here, sir.
Do I need to give you a hell yeah?
I think I need you to help me, and I think you're going to know how.
Okay.
Because, should I come off the top rope?
Sorry?
I need a what?
Oh, what?
Should I come over? Should I yank him up by his ass and drop him on his head?
What?
Nah, I'm just going to do a stunner.
Okay, sounds good.
So, yeah, to me, it is one of those moves that it's just iconic. It is the most iconic finisher.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first one I thought of.
Yep.
I'm like, well, of course, you got the Stone Cold Stunner. I mean, it just is, and a product of when I was, watching wrestling.
I was going to say that makes sense for you, given when you were watching.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like you really got into wrestling with me during the '90s when.
But I did watch it back in the '80s. So
yes.
I remember the Heart Foundation. I remember all those guys. But when I think of, and of course being WWF kid and all that, it's like, yeah, that is going to be the move that I think about, because I saw it approximately 1 billion times on everybody. And that was the other thing, is like, it's one of those moves that you can do on anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't reliant on you picking anyone up. It's not reliant on you twisting someone around or doing this or being in a certain position. Like, literally, it's a boot to the gut and boom, you're done.
Yeah.
And to me, that is like one of the that utility of a finisher, that, like an RKO out of nowhere or whatever. But it's like, to be able to do that to anyone, anytime, anywhere, it's a beautiful thing. And to me, it was so intrinsic to who Stone Cold was.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of the rattlesnake that could bite anytime,
Yep.
Again,
it's a move that enhances or ties to the
Yes.
character, and it's synonymous with them. And
yeah.
I know Kevin Owens asked permission, and I know Stone Cold gave him permission, but there's something that feels wrong still to this day for me to see Owens use that move.
It's just not the same. I don't consider it the same move.
No, and it's not tied to Owens' character in any way, shape, or form. It's that move was part of what made Stone Cold Stone Cold. And Owens has his own moves, and probably adopted that as a homage to someone he looked up to and was his hero. But yeah, no, I and what's ironic is, who's the person that played kind of that pivotal role when Stone Cold became Stone Cold? Jake the Snake Roberts, because Jake was who Stone Cold beat in the King of the Ring when he cut the promo where he said,
Austin 3:16.
you can thump your Bible and you can say your prayers and it ain't going to do you a damn thing. Talk about your Psalms, talk about John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your ass.
Yep.
And a star was born.
Yes. The ringmaster is dead.
Indeed.
Yeah, so we got the DDT and the stunner, and as you said,
and I think that's very respectable.
They are linked.
They are linked inextricably, and I love how we represented two different, kind of boom eras for wrestling as a whole, and had two of the biggest superstars of those eras represented as well. So no, I think it was good. I disagreed with some of your picks, but in the end, I feel like you came through with flying colors, sir. So
well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad
continues
I have
to
your
build upon that wrestling cred that
stamp
you
of
are en route to surpassing me with. So
says the person who didn't watch a lick of Raw.
Life has priorities, and sometimes wrestling is not the first one.
It does, but you know what? Paul Levesque is very disappointed in you right now.
He may be, but I have one thing to say to him. A booyaka.
What do you got for And Another Thing as a recommendation to our listeners and viewers before you go full on walking here?
Well, during our this week's Week in Geek, I talked about Severance on Apple TV Plus. I'm going to go this time with Yellow Jackets season 3 on Paramount Plus. Yellow Jackets is a disturbing show, but it's disturbing, but it's good. It's a good story. It is, for those who don't know, a story of a high school female soccer team who end up crashing in the Canadian woods and are essentially, basically, the story is being told in 2 timelines. One is a past accident with this team and kind of what they go through in this abandoned area, and then we have basically current time with those that survived that accident and some of the mysteries and things going on around it, and it gets into some gnarly territory, but it's very interesting viewing, and I've enjoyed it. So if you are looking for something to try, I mean, it is dark and it's got some very difficult kind of stuff to get through, but I would just say if that sort of thing interests you, then check it out. But I'll go with Yellow Jackets on Paramount Plus.
I have heard about that show. I have not really had any want to watch it.
By the way, one of the great intro songs as well. Like, I love the intro song to that show, and the show does build like these when the girls are teenagers. It is in the 90s, so the soundtrack they kind of dip into for the flashbacks to their teenage years does reflect the time period very, very well.
Interesting.
Good music.
My recommendation is a book by John. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing this correctly. John Pargin. I don't know. It's called "I'm Starting to Worry About This Black Box of Doom." Just check this out from the library. And when did this come out? Is it? Where's the year? You're not helping me here, bookshop. Where is it? I don't know. I think it's recent because I think it's only available in hardcover. The description reads thusly. Outside Los Angeles, a driver pulls up to find a young woman sitting on a large black box. She offers him $200,000 cash to transport her and that box across the country to Washington, D.C. But there are rules. He cannot look inside the box. He cannot ask questions. He cannot tell anyone. They must leave immediately, and he must leave all trackable devices behind. As these eccentric misfits hit the road, rumors spread on social media that the box is part of a carefully orchestrated terror attack intended to plunge the USA into civil war. The truth promises to be even stranger and may change how you see the world. So John Pargin is the New York Times bestselling author of the John Dies at the End series, as well as the award-winning Zoe Ash novels. And I believe John Dies at the End has been a movie, and I think Zoe Ash is getting made into a movie. Dude sold some books. Very interesting book in that it really did actually make me question a lot of things in modern life in terms of social media, online presence, our online life, how we perceive things, how we think about life in general, and how we can be very down on the time period in which we live in and not realize wow, we actually are better off than a lot of kings and queens from past times would have loved to have had access to some of the luxuries that we have, and we take them for granted, like running hot water or penicillin, things like that. It's absurd when you start really putting historical context into this, and also just kind of context into how we live our lives and what social media does to our brains and things like that. I'm not trying to wave a flag on either side of this. I'm just saying it really did make me ask some questions and was thought-provoking and has given me a little bit of a little something to chew on going forward. So and it's an interesting yarn. It's fun. There are times where it is literally a comedy of absurdity, of just what the hell. No, okay, okay, fine, that is happening, but it is a fun read. So I definitely recommend checking that out. I found it at my local public library, so I'm sure you can too as well. I'm putting a link to the bookshop where you can purchase and help out some local bookstores. But yeah, I'm starting to worry about this Black Box of Doom by John Pargin. I totally picked it out based on the title, and yeah, turned out pretty well.
Sounds like a title that would intrigue you.
It is, as an agent of chaos. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our show for this week. Thank you for joining us here on Free Range Idiocy Friday, or whatever day you happen to be listening to this to on. And we thank you to all the members of the Free Range Idiocy congregation who have joined us here. If you want to become part of that congregation, what you do is you go to freerangeidiocy.com and you just download all of our episodes, every single last one. Download them. Don't listen to the first couple. Just don't.
It's a little rough.
Start listening after like 3, 4.
Hello.
somewhere.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it takes a little while to find its feet. But anyways, download them all because that makes us feel better with the numbers going up. You can also find us on all the major podcast purveyors out there like Apple Podcast, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, all of those. Just search for Free Range Idiocy. You'll find us. We are also on the YouTubes. We are on the Facebook. We're on the Instagram. You can follow us at Free Range Idiocy. Definitely subscribe to our YouTube page because you can find us in full, glorious HD color video there. Video is also available on Spotify, I believe. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or concerns, you can send those to Tim at freerangeidiocy.com. We do have 2 shows now going on. You can join us on Week in Geek Wednesday. That is for our kind of, what would you say, potluck show where we have a bunch of different things that we talk about. Free Range Idiocy Friday is for kind of one main topic. But yeah, subscribe to our whatever stream and you'll find all of them. They all come in one package so you can get all the episodes in one. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Well, it's 11:51 here on the East Coast, and we're no longer watching perspectives. We're just the slow downturn until I just collapse into a puddle here in my chair. So it's time for us to wrap this sucker up, but not before I hand...
As Jake the Snake would do.
Yes. That would be right after he did the short arm DDT, which is another move that needs to come back. CM Punk, come on. Just saying.
Come on,
but not before I ask the second most important question in all of human history. The first, of course, being what is hip. The second being, what in the high holy hell did we learn this show?
We have learned the following, my friend.
Besides the fact I need to make these in a pint glass, apparently.
We have learned Uncle Todd needs to make old fashions by the pint, not by the smaller glass. We've also learned that apparently when the man they call Tim breaks out the Christopher Walken and says "Booyaka," it unlocks the funny bone, the laugh control within Uncle Todd and ratchets it up to 11.
Can we please get Christopher Walken singing that live at WrestleMania?
A booyaka, 619.
Everyone would be confused. Christopher Walken would be confused where he's at.
He would.
But as long as the check clears, it's all good.
That's true. We've also learned that Uncle Todd, even though he had some wrong picks, he ended up on the right side of the overall brackets. And the man they call Tim represented as only he can. We have also learned... Hey, this is my part. We have also learned that apparently Free Range Idiocy can do a bracket, a 64 field of 64 bracket in 2 episodes and not 4. So we are. It took us 7 seasons, but we are getting more efficient as we go.
At this rate, we'll actually be relatively intelligent by season 12.
We may finally hit the singularity, if you will.
The entire world is going to be a cinder at that point, but oh well.
We'll be sitting on top of the ashes saying, "We figured it out!" No one will hear us. Oh my gosh. We've also learned,
Booyaka.
As Booyaka! As always, Free Range Idiocy is always looking for the tangent to run on, and boy, did we run on one when it came to 1980s tag teams. and 1990 Superstars.
What are your thoughts on Strike Force?
Oh, good Lord. Oh, my goodness.
How about the Rougeau brothers? How do you feel about them?
I got to say, one of Jesse Ventura's funniest takes on Strike Force, I can't repeat because of the sensibilities of our time now, because he was absolutely awful towards Tito Santana. And
it's like Tito Santana owed him money or something, like stole his girlfriend. I don't know what it was. He had it out for Tito. Good God.
So bad. So bad. With all that being said, excuse me. You know, the seltzer comes a calling. You got to let it rip.
What are we doing right now?
It's hour 3 of recording, so I think we're getting punchy at this point. But as Uncle Todd has stated, we thank you for the listenership, and as we close things out here on the range, be safe, be healthy, be kind, be good to one another. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. The range is closed for now. Until next time, see ya!
I like a Mussolini! It's like I took the wrong week to quit drinking.
I beg your pardon, what did you say?
Damn!
You're such a disappointing pair. I prayed so hard for you. Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
So say we all.
Oh, bam.
Oh, my goodness, sir. You know what? We did not do for Week in Geek Wednesday.
Oh, no.
And which I feel we need to remedy here at the end of Free Range Idiocy Friday.
Okay.
We didn't use this, and we're going to close out on this.
Okay. We should. Shame upon us. We do raw cheers and jeers, man. This is a staple of Week in Geek.
I just go and destroy my living room. Everything's on the table.
I'm glad I'm seeing my trainer tomorrow. I think I need him to fix my neck now that I just did that. So I need some stretch therapy. My neck hurts.
Now get the hell out of here!